Stop playing with us. You already know what it is. Another episode, Fourth in Fantasy. I am Huncho, and this is my right hand man.
Siriaco, call me Rocco. They say we the best dancing podcast and chairs in all the industry of fantasy.
You know what we do. Your fantasy playbook to more championship wins. I know. It's been this past week. Been a little busy, been a little crazy content wise. We got something in store with y'all. We got a lot of brainstorming with our boy Chev and a couple other guys. I don't want to spoil too much because just the idea of it really gets my blood flowing of what just the overall what they're trying to do. Nevertheless, Rocco, hit them people. Who is fourth in fantasy for?
We're a podcast for Dynasty Sickos by Dynasty Sickos. But
Ooh.
today, the newbies are welcome.
The newbies are welcome. And why is the newbies are welcome? Because we are talking startup draft strategies. Rocco, let the people know.
Oh, we're going to let them know.
Today,
we are talking startups, and we're going to start from the bottom, and now y'all are here. First thing, what is a startup? A startup is it's basically a draft where you draft all of your assets for your dynasty team. And a dynasty team is a team where you keep all your assets year over year. It's not like redraft where you draft a brand spank new team every year. In dynasty, you keep all of your players, and every year you have what they call a supplemental draft or a rookie draft where you'll bring in the new class of rookies and maybe pick up anybody that's still left on waivers. But Dynasty is my favorite type of fantasy football, and today we're going to bring you into the startup strategy realm. So first thing,
and Rock, before we get into the grand scheme of things, how did this basically topic came up? Was we're relatively new on TikTok. Shout out to all the TikTokers out there. We're still trying to stay hip and hop, hippity hoppity. We're almost into July. One more day. Shout out to everybody who has followed the page so far. I believe we're at 128 followers, something like that. Nevertheless, the reason why we're speaking on just talking about Dynasty startup drafts in general, because there was a comment we actually about several days ago. I wouldn't even say several days ago, maybe about a week or two. And the individual was like, age doesn't matter in fantasy. And then that's where Rocco had to let him know, well, it does in Dynasty. So we're in 2025. There is plenty of people who still don't know what Dynasty is right now. Rocco, I'm going to let you continue, my brother. Sorry. I just want to let the audience know where we're coming from.
Yeah. Like I said, it's my favorite type of fantasy football because you're all the way invested. You draft your team and you keep that team. If your team fucking sucks, you have to pull that team out of the dumps the next year with the same roster that you went into the season with only draft picks added to help you improve. So, it definitely tests your ability to make trades. I feel like redraft trades don't happen very often.
No.
You may make one trade a year, maybe. That's basically what I did when I was in redraft leagues. I would basically be lucky if I pulled off one trade a year. But in Dynasty, it's what we call a year-round sport. Even when the league, the NFL is not in season, you can make trades all off season, and it actually benefits you to make trades in the off season because you could be making your team better when other managers are sleeping at the wheel. So it definitely is, time intensive. It definitely is challenging, but it's also the most rewarding. And with dynasty teams, you're able to make juggernauts based on your football acumen, not just, having that one good draft, because anybody could have that one good draft, but not everybody could have success year over year.
And Rocco, What do you say that Dynasty? Honestly, there's just a lot more strategy to it. There's a lot more in play that you to be successful. I feel like with redrafting, I guess some could say the same thing can happen in Dynasty where you can just luck up and win yourself a
Mm-hmm.
championship. But I feel like even in redraft, it's even easier just because you don't have to go into, you're not thinking about longevity. You're not thinking about, well, injuries play a part in redraft, obviously, but you're not having, let's say a player tears their, a tank Dell, if you will. Let's say you drafted him last year before the
Mm-hmm.
injury. You're cool. You're feeling nice, and then he tears his basically blows his knee out. Redraft, you're really not caring about that, except for just losing a player during the season because you don't have to draft him next year. But
Mm-hmm.
in Dynasty, that is still your guy. That's your player
Yeah.
that just fucked his whole knee up. It's a whole different other strategy that you have to be conscious about, honestly.
Yeah, and not only that, Dynasty keeps you active for longer if you know what you're doing and you are a good Dynasty player. Because in startups, when you're eliminated from the playoffs, your season's over. You might as well delete the app.
Yeah.
If it's if it's you might as well just delete the team because you have nothing to play for at that point. But in Dynasty, you can be eliminated and you can still, depending on when the trade deadline is, which I prefer a later deadline. I know you maybe prefer no deadline at all, but um, either way, you're still able to make moves after you're eliminated because other teams that are playing for the championship, they get a little antsy and it becomes like an arms race. One guy makes a trade to improve their team, and then all the other contenders are like, I need to do something to get on that level to improve my team. So it creates a market, and teams that are out of the playoffs, hold those cards where they can sell like a Mike Evans, late in the season who can crush for a playoff team.
Yeah.
Guys of that ilk where a team that's out of the playoffs can kind of start either totally rebuilding or begin the rebuild process.
Mhm.
But right now, I think we're getting a little too far ahead of
No, 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 no.
ourselves.
I was gonna
Let's
say.
talk startup strategy.
Right. And then that brings me to our first topic. And we kind of was having a discussion the other day with someone and how we kind of basically build out our teams. But me and Rocco kind of, or I won't even say kind of, we basically go out about the same way. Really believe in the quarterback wide receiver pair. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there's actual terms to this where people go zero RB. I believe there's zero wide receiver, quote unquote. Why would you ever want to be that? But nevertheless, who am I to kill your build? And I think that's the beautiful part about fantasy. There's not a wrong or right way to build. Right? There's just like there's different. Everyone has their own build. Everyone has their own way. Like you can be very
Mm-hmm.
successful going super, just depending on like how your team goes. You can go light at wide receiver and have the most elite running backs and quarterbacks, and you could luck up. Or
Mm-hmm.
somebody with a strong quarterback pair, wide receiver pair, maybe decent RBs, they can also luck up. So it's not really a right or wrong, it just depends on how you build your personal team. Do you agree with that, Rocco?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's why people build certain ways. Everybody in their league is trying to prove that their way is the right way.
Yep.
Like I'm just kind of looking at an old draft right here, and just being in a couple leagues with Chev, I noticed that he, at least in the leagues we're in, I've seen him go running back heavy. So that's a different way to strategize. And I got a draft on the board. I might pull it up in a little bit.
Yep.
But he went Bijan Robinson and Ashton Genty at the 111 202 turn.
Hmm.
So, that's a strategy. Now he is walking into 2025 with the best set of running backs in the league. And in a redraft setting, a lot of people do think that
That's the way.
running backs lead win championships. So I think he's coming at it from that angle. But I think first things first with a dynasty startup is you want to get into a 12 team league.
Yep.
I just feel like that's the perfect
Good number.
number because 10 teams, it feels like every team has a super team, and there's less strategy involved. And when you get into 14 and 16, I like 14. It's a challenge, but 12 team is like
Right in the middle.
that
Yeah.
perfect spot where it's not too thin, but it's not too deep, so you can draft a really good team, and you don't have to, uh, you know, basically I don't want to say luck, but maybe like, fall into like a productive rookie or undervalued player like you would have to do in a 14 team to really get to that super team level.
Yep.
And, that's always the goal in a dynasty league. So I prefer 12 team leagues, and you want to find people that, you know, you want to find good people to play it with.
Active.
That's the biggest thing, because if
Active.
you if you're in a league with dipshits, you might as well just get out early.
It's not
Maybe play
fun.
1 year and then fucking ghost. Even if you're paying a year ahead, which is also, one of the recommendations that we've seen, in the last couple years to try to kind of just keep the retention of players. Where if somebody leaves, you'll have that buy-in for, this year to entice somebody to come play. But that's the biggest thing. You don't want to play with dipshits.
And in Rocco, I think another aspect to throw on about startups, sometimes they can be, you can have veterans and rookies in the same startup draft, and sometimes they can be separated. And your strategy is going to be different depending on how you go. Where I've seen when you have veterans and rookies in the same startup draft, that allows some very valuable veterans to slide down the board. People start going rookie
Mm-hmm.
crazy, where
Mm-hmm.
you see guys like, yo, what? You're taking this rookie over this or over production. Don't get me wrong. I love me a good rookie. Don't get me wrong. I changed. Ashton Genty literally made me change up basically my strategy from time to time. Where if I'm typically and I will go more down in the episode when we get into this, but when I'm looking around that second round ish, it's typically a wide receiver if or a quarterback. I'm not really the one to go running back really early, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting Ashton Genty in that same category as Bijan. I'm putting Ashton Genty in that same category as Jameer Gibbs, who are guys who go in the first round. I'll take that. I'll take that value in the second round, and then I can come back in the third and give me a wide receiver. So now I have because I typically, if we're looking at that first round, and I'm gonna ask you, Rocco, typically how you go in the first round of a
Mm-hmm.
startup draft. I'm going wide receiver, and damn near don't let me have the first 7 or 8 fucking picks because CeeDee Lamb is coming off the goddamn board. I don't care if I have the third pick overall. I'm taking CD.
I know for a fact I've been in a lot of leagues with this guy, and usually it seems like you end up in the middle of the draft. Is that where you like to be?
Yep, I think for me that's a sweet spot just because
Mm-hmm.
I already know where I'm going with it, CD.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel better picking CD at 7 or 8 rather than
Mm-hmm.
at 3. But nevertheless, I have to do it at 3 because nobody else can have fucking CD except for me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's. I mean, I've seen people who like to pick at the front of drafts, and they like to lock in that Josh Allen, that Jaden Daniels,
What
Lamar
do you like,
Jackson.
Rocco?
Who I like to be in the middle because I think it's a personal preference, but I like that it's always going to be about the same amount of guys that go off the board before it's my
Mm-hmm.
turn.
Yep.
I find at the end, there are just teardrops, and sometimes you just get stuck with a teardrop, and you're like, fuck. All of the guys I like came off the board because when you're at the end, you can have a queue set up for 20 deep,
Bro,
and all 20 of them dudes can go off the
that shit
board.
horrible.
It could vary, and you may be left with one guy, but I find that in the middle, I always have options in the middle.
Mm.
And I also find that it's a good place to trade out of because with all of those options, I can trade out the middle, move back 2, 3, 4, 5 spots,
Mhm.
and I'll still get one of the guys that I have in a tier where I didn't lose a whole bunch, but I did get who I wanted.
Mhm.
But I think when we talk about startups, I think my strategy, and I'll kind of let me just share my screen here. This is a
Yes,
recent one
sir.
I did maybe about a month ago or so. So let me see. Let me make sure I got it here. All right. Can you see that?
Yup, we're good.
All right. So if I'm at the front of a draft, I'm going quarterback. I'm going Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and my other one that I found myself pushing the button on a lot is Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow,
He
see?
is different from those other guys because he doesn't run like those guys, but he's also a guy that can throw for 5,000 yards every year and 40 touchdowns, and nobody would bat an eye. But if those four guys are gone, I'm looking at Jamar Chase. I'm looking at Justin Jefferson. I'm looking at a CD Lamb.
Is this super flex?
Always,
Okay, I just had to ask. I'm still part of
always.
I'm still part of that one QB squad. I still got love for y'all. I know.
No, if I'm in a one QB league, trust me, I'm looking for my exit strategy. Unless it's really cool people. I'm in a one QB redraft league, and the only reason I've stayed is because I've won the championship 3 times in 5 years.
Hmm.
Humble brag, but
He said like Brad.
that's a redraft league, and we're talking about dynasty startups. I think after Chase, Jefferson, Lamb, and possibly Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're talking about super elite, foundational tier one wide receivers.
Mhm.
I think at that point I kind of pivot to some of those secondary QBs like Jalen Hurts. And the Jalen Hurts could really be in that top tier because he is a league winner every year and he brings so much value in
Yeah,
scoring touchdowns and running. So he can definitely be in that top tier. For whatever reason, we see him kind of slip
yeah.
back a little bit in
That's my
drafts,
boy
but
Mike.
he can definitely be in that top five QB tier. So,
Can I
uh,
can I ask you
sure,
two questions? Because one,
yeah,
shout out to that boy Mike for getting Jalen Hurts at that position. I think that's really good value. And I'm typically not the biggest Jalen Hurts guy to pick in the
hmm
draft or ever, to be honest with you, just because where you got to pick them, it's typically in that front half of the first round, and I don't want to do that. So, but what is the tight end premium in this league? Because to see Bowers to go in the first round, I'm not mad at that because once again, go dogs. But it has to be a tight end premium for Bowers to be going in that first.
I think it may be two, if I'm not mistaken. I can find out for you
A little quick
real
2 point,
quick.
a little two
Well,
point.
the app on desktop kind of fucking sucks. So
Well,
let me just pull this up. FFU Dynasty, and mind you, this is a league with folks that are content creators, so it's definitely a very competitive league.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. We're looking to see what the scoring is for tight end premium. It's 1.75, so definitely big time tight end premium, and that's part of the reason why he went at 1.9. But he gives you such a leg up on the
I'm telling you,
competition that we see him go in the first round quite often.
like Brock Bauer scored 500 points and once again, this is going to seem a little bit crazy just because due to settings, but in a league where the tight end premium, I believe, is 3 points, 3 or 4 points, he scored over 500 fantasy points last year.
Hmm
So I could see 100%. That's shit we saw in the rookie draft in that league that made Tyler Warren go at the 102 or 103 in our
hmm
rookie draft just because of how big the tight end premium is. And so shout out to looks like Ryan Pros who took Bowers once again. Go dogs! You know how we do.
hmm
Woo, woo,
hmm
woo. CD Lamb at 110 is damn near a steal. Whoever took Malik Neighbors at it looks like that 105, you're tripping. You're tripping. You're tripping.
That's our guy SC Romero. He's a big time Devi guy,
Tripping.
and if you want to see tripping, just look at his draft and tell me something that you don't see.
Let's see. Who we looking at? We got Malik Neighbor. I don't see a quarterback until. Oh wow. Oh
He's got Shador Sanders is his QB1.
oh.
I mean, he does have Geno Smith, so
You got
I
Gino.
think hey, Geno could be a QB1, so that's low key. I think he kind of ate with Geno,
Hmm.
but yeah, he went
He went
he
super young.
went Neighbors, Thomas. Looks like that's a trade for Hunter, but and then he went and then he hammered running backs with Hampton, Judkins, Caleb Johnson, R.J. Harvey. So he loves the 2025 running back class. But that just kind of shows you, you know, all of the different strategies
Hmm.
that are available to you because you see
Yeah.
teams that are going running back heavy. You see teams. I think that the safe way to go in startups is two QBs right off the top because there's such a
Oh,
limited number of
I don't like that shit.
good QBs.
That shit make my
That's a
stomach hurt.
safe way to go.
Mm-mm.
Lately, what I've been doing is I've been trying to get my anchor QB first, whether it be Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, or
Mhm.
Josh Allen. If I'm in if I'm on that top half of
That first
round
one.
one,
Mhm.
and then where I'm going is I'm trying to hammer wide receivers. Here I went with Puka Nakua was a trade. I traded out of that pick, but I went with Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith.
Good
Um,
move.
yep, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Because I know both of those guys are going to be target hogs, and I can count on both of those guys getting 130 plus targets. So that was my strategy. And part of that is because I kind of saw that people were fading quarterback in this draft. And that's another thing. You got to kind of be attentive to the board.
Correct.
Like if you see the whole first round go and you have like say I don't know 8 quarterbacks go in the first round, and then you start to see them come off in the second round, you might want to get a quarterback really quickly because you can get into a situation where you know
Shit,
Bryce
you're
Young
that
is your
guy.
QB1, Sam Darnold is your QB2, and you're kind of fucked at that point
No,
at the
sir, you
QB
didn't even do
position.
the worst scenario where you got motherfucking Shiloh Sanders as your QB2. That's why. That's the word. Let's go. Come on,
Sorry, I see you, my dude, but
shout
I
out
don't
to
know
him.
about that
No
one.
shade. No shade to you, my boy. I'm just saying that isn't. I don't know how you saw the draft play out and was like, I'm not going to select the quarterback at all, my boy. I don't know. And then you have Baker Mayfield going the fourth round. You tripping? You tripping? I'm just saying, man. Look at that. You got. If we're really looking at it, and I like Michael Penix in the third. I don't want to go too far
Yeah,
down the line, but like, bro, what?
yeah. I think where he fucked up at was Quinshawn Judkins again above Baker Mayfield, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix.
Yeah.
Um, I'm on the fence about Bryce Young. I know you're a fan, and I think he could
Always.
be a serviceable QB2 in my eyes. But
Yeah.
you also passed up on a solid Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, who's going to be every other year. So you passed up a lot of guys that would look really nice as your QB1. But
Yeah.
I think he's doing a what we call a productive rebuild where he is not really going for
This year.
2025.
Yeah.
He's setting himself up for 2026 and beyond. And I think his strategy is to hammer QBs in 2026, which there will be a nice class for 2026.
Agreed.
So that's another thing when you play Dynasty, you have to have an eye, at least have a general knowledge of future draft classes, at least a year out,
Hmm.
just to kind of set up some different strategies. Like, if you're gonna have a legendary draft class, um, I guess like
You could theoretically talk about like if we're not talking about generate. when like talent wise generational, but depth wise for the RB class of last year, or if we want to
Hmm.
skip all the way to 2027 and talk about that wide receiver class that would be coming out, then we can go. We could be like, all right,
I think that's maybe a little bit, we're going in a little bit too deep for this beginners class.
yeah,
But that definitely can be a future episode. Um, but I think the important thing when you're doing startups, and I think this is key to any startup, is try to avoid risk in the first few rounds. You know, and when
agreed.
I say risk, um,
Does
I'm
Travis Hunter
talking
not?
about
Does Travis Hunter not count as a risk?
that is a huge risk. Huge risk. Sorry, Mike, I don't mean to pick on you, but Caleb Williams is a huge risk in the second round, considering we didn't
Yeah.
see it in 2024. So, in the first 3 rounds, I like to take somebody that I've seen be pretty fucking awesome. I mean, it doesn't have to be we don't have to, talk about, all of their, attributes and how they were in college. I mean, if you've seen them be awesome and produce as an NFL player, then
Mhm.
I feel comfortable taking you in the first 3 rounds. After the first 3 rounds, then you can start making some risky moves. I think the only guy right here that I feel good with is Genty, just
Yeah.
because of the opportunity share, and with a guy like Genty, you'll have a good runway to parachute out of Ashton Genty if you want to, because he's gonna hold his value unless God forbid something happens to his knees.
Oh, they let
But
Drake London slide to the third, tripping. He's not lasting
third
past that
round.
second. I'm telling you, he's not. If I was in this draft, he wouldn't have made it past. And once again, that goes back to my draft strategy. That first round, smashing CDs. Pause. The first round. I'm getting that out the way. Then I'm looking at that turnaround. We're in the second round. Now, a lot more quarterbacks. Well, a good number of quarterbacks went in the second. I probably, if I'm depends on because if I just say I'm in the middle, right?
Hmm.
Then then theoretically only Mahomes and Herbert came off. I'm like, all right, there's still a good number of quarterbacks I still feel pretty good about. Let me go grab another wide receiver. I would probably be thinking about Brian Thomas Jr. It looks like he went off the board at that 208. I would be thinking about Drake London, Nico Collins would be up there. I think those would be those three. I would wait, maybe potentially Lad McConkey, but I would feel better in the third picking Lad
Hmm.
rather than the second. That second round, that first or second round in the startup draft, when I'm thinking about wide receivers, I'm thinking about legit wide receiver one potential type of guys. If you ask me, could Chase be the wide receiver one? He did it last year, so yes. If you ask me, Malik Neighbors, could he be wide receiver one? Maybe.
Hmm.
A lot of things would have to happen, but I'm not gonna rule it out. Justin Jefferson, we know he a dog. CeeDee Lamb, we know he a dog. Amon-Ra St. Brown, we know he a dog. Puka is yes, we know he's a dog, but I just don't want to between the injuries. No, no, we are on the hot takes of him and both Devontae Adams are going to kill and Matthew Stafford going to go off. But nevertheless, injuries are injuries and risk. Yeah, I would throw Puka in that area, so I'd probably go London because he's been healthier and he's younger, or I think about
Yeah,
the same age actually. But
I think with Puka Nakua, I think you know the reason why I find myself not picking him, and it's really kind of a dumb reason, honestly,
mm,
is that I got so much of him as a fourth round rookie and off of waivers
mm,
and priority pickups that now I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to
yeah,
spend a second. I really don't want to spend a second for your ass because
boy got spoiled.
you know I went from like basically free to second round and startup. I'll take him if but he's definitely in my foundational tier one.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I think I'm still taking Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, um, Nico Collins, kind of a coin flip. He has a few questions out of the foundational class, But yeah, that's basically how I'm building. As you can see with this team, I smashed Jackson Smith
Good pick.
and Garrett Wilson. I traded out. It doesn't really show, but I traded out of Puka Nakua. I used Puka Nakua. You know, the the draft. The promise to be able to draft a Puka Nakua. I used that to trade out of that, and I picked up a couple early round picks. And that's basically my startup strategy. Is I like to trade down
That's a
because
very speak on it. Oh, go ahead, Rob. But speak on it. That's a smart. Speak on it.
yeah, well I basically for every one of my picks, and people might hate it, people might think I'm a dick or whatever, but for each of my picks, I at least try to give, especially in the early rounds, I try to give at least like 30 minutes to see if I can make something happen. And what I want to do is I want to trade my second round pick, and I want to pick up maybe a third round pick and a fourth round pick, a third
Yeah.
round pick and a fifth round pick.
Some people actually just
And
like to throw out them 2026 first to get back up in that first, second round as well.
I'll also take first, but what I found in my strategy recently is to repackage that first
Mhm.
and then try to pick up something in like maybe the sixth, seventh round. And then I'm really cooking with gas because now I've picked up an extra early round pick. I picked up an extra early round pick, and let me just click on my team here so you can kind of see how I went before we kind of get along here. So I went Burrow, Jackson Smith. I went with Taylor, 2,000 yards. It's going to happen.
That's a good pair. A real good pair.
CMC, I'm going all in on the wins. Ayuk, I don't like the news I've heard recently, but I do digress.
Yeah, gotta let
Uh,
it burn on that one.
Jaden Reed, Tony Pollard, and I think what you can see in these middle rounds is I'm going for guys that have a floor but also have some upside. Like a Jaden Reed, we've seen him be awesome for stretches, but he is also a third wide receiver at times for Green Bay. So um, there are some questions, but if he hits, he's the type of guy that could hit hard. I like the floor with Tony Pollard. He's a starting running back, and then you kind of see me going for upside here with Kyle Williams, um, and guys that have some talent. And I think my team is getting kind of scary
Yeah,
here.
I mean, hey, listen,
And these are the late rounds.
I would say for me, honestly, if you're thinking about just startups and how people build their teams, and honestly, I like your team. I think it gives a good mix of production with rookies. And maybe in 2025, you might not be the most contended, like the top team, but shoot, let 2026 go your way. And I could honestly see where it'd be up, where you have Brandon Ayuk 1 year off the injury. Hopefully, CMC can stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to him. I honestly believe in Dak Prescott no matter what the year. It's just always been like a health issue with him. So when you pair, and I always believe to really contend, you need at least two good position groups for your team. You need either, and you can pair that with good, decent QBs with good running backs and good wide receivers. You can have good QBs with good wide receivers and decent RBs, or you can go like the other routes. So like you need at least two good position groups, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion, to be able to consistently contend. Sure, you can get lucky per week and get by, and guys can get hot. Like we've seen shit. The tight end from the Titans, Chig. We saw him.
Check.
Yeah, we saw. He's not. Most wouldn't consider him in that top 10 of tight ends, but he gave you that type of production towards the later of the year. So honestly, if we're looking at the overall grand scheme of things, I like what you did. Joe Burrow can be when we're talking about fantasy football and just regular football in general, he's a top 10 quarterback. Dak Prescott in fantasy football, when he plays a full 17 games, typically finishes as a top 10 quarterback. So if health being what it is, and we were looking at the other wide receivers, you got JSN, you got Garrett Wilson, who I'm going to keep sh- shipping up the charts because I do think he's going to have a good
he
2025.
needs to for Fields to hit your hot take.
Listen, I need it. But and then you got Devontae Smith. I was and to be fair, I, Devontae Smith, my first year of Dynasty, was one of the players I actually did trade for. Ended up trading him away just because I don't think just because of the current environment he's on, he can't be the wide receiver one of that team. Is hit or miss, and like it's every so often. And then you had the how their offensive play scheme went last year. But I think with Kellen Moore gone, they pass a little bit more. Obviously, Saquon's still in town, so they're still gonna run that damn thing. But don't sleep on Devontae and AJ Brown. I think they
Hmm.
see a resurgence in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, what I found surprising when I kind of look back, and I haven't really been a Devonta Smith guy because his price has always been super high, and he'll never be the number one over AJ Brown unless he gets hurt.
Mhm.
But even with the way they ran their offense last year, which was super run heavy, led to 2,000 yards from Saquon Barkley, you can still see all of the double digit performances that
Yeah,
Devonta Smith had, including a 30-point game, a 28-point game, and that's in the fantasy playoffs. So we're talking about league winning upside in the
so
fantasy playoffs that he showed last year. So um,
like I said, I
I
like what
think
you said.
I think he's a great flex, a wide receiver three. I would feel some type of way about having him as my wide receiver two, but as a flex or a wide receiver three, that's league winning upside.
And you went ahead and got Purdy too. And you got
Yeah,
Purdy. And don't get me wrong. And I'm
the
not
reason
trying
why that's why we
to.
trade down to get guys like Purdy.
Like it's not. I'm not. I like Purdy, and that's not to say he's like a top five. He can't like with that overall offense and what they could. He could bounce back into that area. I think Brock Purdy is safe. That's what I
Hmm.
really do. I do think as when you're thinking about quarterbacks and you're like, I need me a decent QB2 or not even a decent or above average or good QB2. Hell, I would even feel comfortable with Purdy as my Q as a low QB1 just because of the overall offense, the players that he has around him. Kittle, you got Ayuk, hopefully coming back, but you also got Juwan Jennings. I think and you got to throw out one of the best offensive minds in the game, Kyle Shanahan. So let's and also just throw it out. This man was literally the last pick of the NFL draft, Mister Irrelevant. Mr. Irrelevant. So everything I feel like he's done in the NFL so
Hmm.
far is just a cherry on top, right? Because and if we're talking, it's the old Tom Brady story. Not to say he's going to be Tom Brady, but picked in a later round, rise above where he was drafted, shows out. Love that. And once again, I just keep throwing this on. I like the balance between on your team specifically. I love the balance between production and youth, where you have once again Afton Chisholm. I think 2025, it would probably take an injury or two for him to see some significant role play. But in 2026, 2027, it's up. It is up. Luther
Yeah.
Burden, it is up in 2026, I believe. Because I honestly, I don't think Moore has much time left in Chicago, if we're being honest. But then you got Burton, Kenan Mitchell. I think Taj Brooks could end up taking over that backfield in Cincinnati. So, and then you got Kyle Williams. So that's another guy who could end up Bateman. That's another one. So I think overall you have good depth, you got good youth, and you got good production. So that should be pretty good for you, I think.
And and let's just also say this:
Hmm.
when you're drafting, I always try to the make a team that has the most ability to make trades to get even better. So I'm not a huge fan of Luther Burden, especially in 2025. I think there's just too many mouths to feed in an offensive system where it's hard to throw the ball late in the season.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of people in this league do like Luther Burden. So, you know, I can always flip him for a first round pick. I guarantee you I can flip him for a first round pick, at any time I want to, or I can flip him into a more veteran type receiver that can help me win in 2025.
Oh yeah.
Kyle Williams, there's a hive that loves Kyle Williams. All I need for him to do is show out in preseason, and I'll have first round offers for him. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I try to do. Is I try to get a mix. I don't want to have an all veteran team, which can age out fast if you're not
Quickly.
ready to trade some of those
You
assets.
can redraft.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to do all vet team redraft,
Redraft.
um, but and I also like to have a good bit of youth, you know, especially more towards my bench area and my taxi squad. That way, I have players that can, ascend to starting roles. Maybe even some guys, maybe like a Luther Burden or Kyle Williams, that can ascend to a star type of level.
Mhm.
And if either of those guys hit in 2025 or 2026, all of a sudden I'm looking at a superstar type of team because now I have those guys as my last flex on my team. So
Mhm.
um, that's what I try to do, and I try to always get max value on each pick, whether it be a player or it be trading out of that pick. I'm always accumulating value on my squads.
And as the episode is winding down, a question I have for you, Rocco. What are some mistakes that you see from people during startup drafts that they like you see them do, and you already know already setting themselves up for failure for that current year and the long term?
I think sometimes people draft guys higher than they should go. Um, so, you know, I can appreciate the notion to go get your guys, but also stay in a realistic ADP.
Mm.
And what I'm trying to say is,
Don't go grab
say,
Javon Baker in the fucking third round. Don't do. That's what he's trying.
what I'm saying is, if Cam Ward is a consensus fourth round startup picks,
Okay.
but you just love Cam Ward, you love his moxie and his showmanship, and you just love the way he plays football.
Yeah.
Now, if you draft him in the second round, you fucked yourself
Right.
because you could have easily drafted him in the third round, still got your guy, and not lit a second round draft pick on fire. And that's what somebody did in this league. They went Cam Ward and they bypassed Nico Collins and Drake London, who are two foundational wide receiver ones. So, shit like that, taking Cam Ward over a Bo Nix who showed out as a rookie in the league.
Yeah. I'm like that.
Um, I think that's a big issue. Um, I don't like personally. Some people can make it work, but personally, especially if you're a newbie, I would avoid trading up because you may have two awesome players that you get in the first round, the first two rounds, but you're not going to have a good starting lineup. And if we're talking about a team with a quarterback, a super flex, two running backs, three wide receivers, four flex, then you're going to be starting like fucking DJ Giddens in your flex spot,
Yep.
and you're never going to win like that.
Mm.
So that's a couple things. I think taking on too much risk early in a draft, that's a fatal flaw.
Mm-hmm.
Because if any one of those risky players that you knew going in is risky, inherently all NFL players are risky because injury is 100% going to happen to basically everybody in the league, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't avoid it. But I mean risk as in you haven't seen them ascend to wide receiver QB1 status, but you're projecting them to do it in 2025. But the problem is if they didn't show it as a rookie and now they haven't shown it as a second year player, their value is going to drop off a cliff,
Mm-hmm.
and you're never going to be able to recoup that second round value on that guy. So those are a couple things that can that can lead to a downfall.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of your absolutely cannot, will not do in drafts?
Mm. I will not overspend on any player, no matter if you, because some people are like, oh, I'll go ahead. Let's say somebody knows I'm a really big CD Lamb person. They ended up
Hmm.
drafting them. They're like, hey, I trade them to you. Nah, bro, I don't want them because I already know what you go already. I already know because I already know what how much he would have cost for him for him to get off my team. So no, they're gonna drive that up. Another thing, if you're getting into Dynasty, really just go out and learn. One, know about the scoring. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to that part because each startup is going to be different. Whether there's a RB premium, whether it's a tight end premium, whether it's a 4 point passing league, a 6 point passing league, does running backs get points per carry? All these things matter and go into
Hmm.
your strategy. If let's say there is a RB premium, they get points for the amount of carries that tosses Ashton Genty, all those guys who are we consider workhorses up. If it's a
Hmm.
PPR league compared to standard, if it's a half PPR league, all those things matter because in the half PPR, RBs have more value. They go up, right? So super flex compared to one quarterback. The the skill positions have more value in one quarterback than they have in super flex. In Superflex, quarterbacks is the almighty, the one and one rule that you need to have, right? So
Hmm.
I think honestly, also people are stubborn. They don't know how to pivot. I think when, especially
Yeah,
you
big
need to learn,
time.
you need to learn how to pivot, and you need to learn how to pivot that shit quick. Because let's say your team, you could honestly think did amazing in the draft, and shit, you start 1-5 or shit, you lose all your first 6 games. Are you aware enough to be like, I need to make some trades to think you can save the season? Do you think you need to just save like fuck it and just shoot for 2026 or 2027? Is it
Yeah.
time for a rebuild? Like those are
Hmm.
things that make a really good dynasty player, and the best ones rebuild for the shortest times. They can turn that shit around in a
Yeah.
year or a year. It shouldn't take 2 3 years unless it's a really really gutted out team, and you're basically kind of just taking it. Shit, we seen the kind of bad orphan teams that some people have to take over, and those are the only situations where I feel like that should be more of a 2 3 year type of rebuild. I've taken over plenty of orphans that I've turned around in a year. You just have to know how to play the game, know your
Hmm.
mates, know what they will know, like their overall, like what they're trying to get, and also if you're new to Dynasty, that's the easiest way to get finesse, and someone can easily tell when you're new to Dynasty, and they can take advantage of that. I'm not okay. I won't say I won't take advantage of that because
I'll
I'm a,
take advantage.
I'm an opportunist, baby. I'm gonna come get you.
I'll take it straight up. I'll take advantage of your
I'm
ass.
gonna come get that ass. But nevertheless, I feel like if you really want to play Dynasty, and this is my number one pet fee. I know we're or just on startups in general because it's not really a startup in redrafts, if you will. I don't really consider redraft as startups because you're basically having a startup every year, right?
Mm.
So I think in Dynasty, or if you're coming from redraft, take some of those strategies, bring it with you, but a lot of it, throw that shit out the window, right? Just is, and once again, it depends on the scoring settings, it depends on the roster, how many bench shit, how is taxi locked or not? Can you trade after this certain point? Things in that nature, I feel like really go a long ways and really make you a good dynasty. And it's just an overall startup. I think if you're trying to come out well in the startup and shit, this goes even further because we still started doing Devi. Well, you've been in Devi. I just started doing Devi leagues, and in a Devi startup, man, and don't let rookies be included in that shit too. whole different other world because the people get really locked into Debbie players, and you can damn near get a good veteran who had a really productive year in damn near round 9, round 8, round 10 if you really can. So yeah, knowing what league you're in, knowing your settings, I feel like really makes you a startup. Don't be that guy who, yes, go get your guy, but don't be that guy, right? Don't just. I'm gonna call you an asshole because you fuck it up. You're fucking it up for the rest of us. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's those are my thoughts on what makes a really good first off startup. How you can win your startup, stay ahead of basically staying ahead of your league mates, and don't. A lot of people feel like they know what I'm gonna do because they know the players I like. You don't know what I'm gonna do because I know once again how to pivot.
I know.
Okay,
I know
you
sometimes.
you call the fucking you you call the fucking
I think sometimes I call your players out. You're like, fuck that. I'm gonna pick somebody else, bastard.
sometimes that does happen. I'm like, no, fuck this man. You don't know me.
You don't fucking know who I'm gonna pick,
Right?
bastard.
Bro, he's definitely called. He's like, oh, he Rocco funny. He's like, I already know who's coming off the boards, and he put Iowa Jeff, and I ended up picking Caleb Johnson because he saw that shit coming off the board. He know. Don't let my favorite players last on the board too long. I'm gonna get them motherfuckers. I promise you. But,
I
uh,
let him fall to you just because I
but this
think I was picking right in front of you.
But this episode has, I know we're wearing down, we're at the 50, at the
Yeah.
52-ish mark. This episode has been brought to you by Fast Draft, the fastest best ball platform out there on the market where you can play all different platforms on there, whether it's all defensive, all rookie, and a mix of both. And they are willing to give you over 25 hold on, $2,500,000 in cash prizes in your pocket, manyan, moolah, if you win though. So you can't suck and come on that platform and think you're gonna get money. Don't suck. Come over here and be the best person that you can. Using our promo code fourth, Fast Draft will double your first deposit up to $50. I repeat, using our promo code fourth, they would give you up to $50. Double your first deposit. I'm telling you. But nevertheless, this has been Fourth and Fantasy. It's actually been fun. I like talking. I think we're going to get more back into the basics. Just
Mm-hmm.
audience who don't play fantasy football, for who looking to play fantasy football, or just the ones who are looking to get into Dynasty. We got you. Fourth and Fantasy got you. Honcho and Rocco, the dynamic duo. And we got more in store. Like I said, we got more things coming with more people. I got to keep it hush hush though, because the idea is actually really smart. And I wish I would have stole that shit myself. But nevertheless, Rocco, do you have anything for the viewers before we go?
Yeah. Join our Discord. The best way to smash your startups is to join our Discord and ask for some advice there because we're in the streets. We're
In the
I
street?
mean, I can't even tell you how many startups I've done just this off season. Every time I tell myself I'm not gonna do another startup, I get invited to another startup, and I'm like, it's $10. Okay, okay,
Okay.
y'all are cool. I'm not in any leagues with you guys. Okay. Oh, it's a Debbie. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the one thing I would like to say is, you know, the best way to get better at startups is to get a lot of practice. You don't have to be a sicko like us, but get into one, get into two, get into three, because the more leagues you're in, the better chance you have to win, and the more practice you get playing with different type of people. And the last thing I'll end on startup strategy is it is not over once the draft ends. Smash those waiver runs. Figure out exactly when waiver starts right after the draft and hammer that shit. Get you as many good players as you can to add to your roster because a lot of times those players in that first waiver run are going to be the best players that are on waivers all year.
Yep.
Puka Nakua was in a shitload of waiver runs. Just think about those kind of things. And Puka Nakua was free when we say waiver run. So that's my final word of advice with startups. But if you have any questions, join our growing Discord, and we are free and we make ourselves available to our community. get with us and get better and win these leagues.
Exactly how Rocco. I can't even say it better than myself. Find us on Twitter or X, whatever you call it. Find us on shit. We even on Instagram. Find us on TikTok. Find us on goddamn Blue Sky. Find us on YouTube. We're everywhere. You can find us everywhere. Shit. You go on player profile, you'll see our faces. You go on our boy Dynasty Dogs, you'll see our faces. We're in these streets, we're in the trenches, and we're going crazy with it. More content, more coming for you guys. Season one, we're still on season one. Season two, like I said, we're trying to add more to the show, more to the production. It's going to be fun. It's going to be live. Once again, thank you everybody for tuning in to Fourth and Fantasy, for everybody who continues to support us, and for the new supporters that we will continue to get in the future. Appreciate everybody. Y'all have a wonderful day, night, wherever you are, however you're viewing us. Till next time, this is Fourth and Fantasy. I am Honcho, and this is my guy.
Rocco. Call
And
me Rocco.
till next time, later.